Hi, I'm George Pearson. In this Photoshop video, I'll be showing you how to use the new Curvature Pen Tool, which is right over here. There you go. And use this tool to make a path. Use that to make a selection so that we can take a picture like this one here, take it from this, and use that path to replace the background to give us that. Now, if you like this video, make sure you click that like button and, of course, share with your friends. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well. And to learn a lot more about Photoshop, look at my complete training titles and you'll find a link for those up there in the upper right hand corner. Okay, let's get to it. I'm going to hide this picture here. We'll come back to this, of course, as we make our project. But first, I want to show you basics about how this new Curvature Pen Tool works. Let's just make a new file here, and I'll set this at the default Photoshop size, which is right there, and create. There we go. Now, the standard pen tool up here, the way this works is if you click on a point, you get straight lines between your points, like that. If you click and drag, you get a control handle, and that gives you a curved line. And then click back on your starting point to make a closed path. So that it's easy, as you can see, pretty straightforward. You can then use the direct select tool here to click on these things and grab your control handles and move things around and so forth. So you have all kinds of abilities in here to adjust that. You can do the same thing, of course, with the new tool. Let's just delete this path. Here we are. And let's switch over here to the new Curvature Pen Tool. Now the main difference here is when I click on a point like that and click on another point, I get curves instead of getting straight lines. So it gives you a curved path instead of a straight line path. And most of the time, a curved path is more natural for making selections. You can still get straight lines by just double clicking, and you get a straight line. A single click is back to curves again. And then double click, straight line. So you can get straight lines or curved lines very easy without having to change tools or anything else. Also with this, I can come in here, I can actually come into a curve on my path or a straight line. Just click on the path, I can get a new little control handle right there, new point, without having to change tools. With the old path tool, I'd have to switch tools over here to the add anchor point tool or delete anchor point tool to do that. On this, I don't have to. I just come in here and find a spot and click, and there's my new point. Also, I can grab that point and move that around right with this new Curvature Select tool. So it has a lot more abilities built right into the tool, making it a lot easier to do very fast selections. Now you still can go back, grab your direct select tool, click on a point, and you still have all of your control handles and everything else. You can do everything that you could do before in here. You know, move your points around, grab your lines, all this kind of stuff. All this is still available to you from the direct select tool. The main difference here, main two differences, is that the Curvature Pen Tool gives you curves instead of straight lines. Normally when you're making your points, it connects those your anchor points with curves instead of straight lines, and also that you can work interactively with your line a bit more using this tool. So I kind of prefer using this tool instead of using the pen tool to create these paths. And depending upon what kind of work you're doing, making a path to use as the basis for a selection is really a very good way to go, because you can do such things like this, come back in and actually make adjustments. Okay, with all that done, let's go ahead and delete this whole thing, and let's take a look at our project, and we'll use that Curvature Pen Tool to make a path and then convert that path for a selection, and then use the selection for a layer mask. I'll start off with opening up our basic file. Let me find my pictures. There we go. There it is. Now both of these pictures are available online, and I have a materials page for this video. Go to that page and get the download links for these two images if you want to work along with this video using the same pictures I've used. So let's open up this one. It's our base picture, and this just fits screen on that. There we are. Now for the girl in here, I want to bring her in as a smart layer, and the easiest way to do that is just to go up to File and then Place, Linked, right there. Click on that and choose Place. Now the reason for doing that is if you resize an image just like this, it goes back to the original image and resamples each time you make a change. If I came in here with just dragging this image in here without placing it, it wouldn't resample the image each time. So we get better quality this way by placing it instead of just dragging and dropping into the file. So let's go ahead, we'll go ahead and place that one linked. There it is. Now for a resize that stays in proportion, you hold down the Shift key and then grab one of these corners, and as you see here, it just stays in proportion. Now a couple of things I want to do with this. I want to hide most of this leg down there because all this grass. We'll be getting rid of some of that grass as the last step. We'll make this easier just by cutting out the bottom of that picture. There we go, about like that. And then I want to bring it up so her hat is very close to the top of the screen. So again, hold that Shift key down. Let's bring our hat up very close to the top of the screen, kind of like that. And then, to see where we're at, it's going to be over in here someplace. Kind of in there. We'll go ahead and do a final adjustment later on. One of the reasons to have this again as a smart layer is so we can readjust that size later on if we need to, and it's going to resample and keep the quality as high as possible. For a last step, when we go back in to do some clone stamp work to get rid of the grass in here, we'll have to rasterize the layer first before we can do that, but that's very, very last step. Okay, so that looks pretty good. It's about where we want that. We're now ready to make our path. We'll be doing a path around the whole figure here. I'll keep it fairly tight because I want to show you how to use the new Curvature Path tool. And then we'll go back in and we'll clean up any edges that need cleanup after we've converted this to a selection using Select and Mask. Okay, let's go ahead. We'll zoom in. I'll zoom in kind of tight down here, and using my little wheel on the mouse, just scroll down a bit. And that's pretty good. And let's go ahead and grab our tool. Now again, I'm using the Curvature Pen Tool in here because it gives us curves between points. And as you can see here, most of these are going to be curves and not straight lines. Now I tend to put in a fair number of points. You don't have to, it's up to you. The fewer points you put in, it just means you have longer curves. Now when you're putting in curves, what you want to do is find a spot where you're seeing a change in direction. Like right here is kind of a change in direction right there. There's a little bit of an indent right here, so there'll be one here. Change in direction here, change in direction here, maybe up here. So try to find where the curvature is changing and put points at those spots, anchor points at those spots for the best results. And I'll start off just outside down here. I'm starting off just outside because it'll be easier to find my beginning point when we finished off the selection or our path over here and come back to the beginning. So starting out here just makes it easy to find that. So right there. And then I'll come right in, right on that edge. We'll put a point just there. And then I'll begin putting points around the edge. Now, keep in mind that we're going to be going back as a second step here and cleaning up or adjusting these points. So you don't have to be perfect at this point, just basically in the right spot. I'm going to make this a lot more perfect than we actually have to because we're doing cleanup with that Select and Mask tool. But we'll make it real nice and tight, again, just to show you how to use this tool. Now notice I'm over here, I'm kind of moving around and the path is still sitting there. I can always go back to that path later and add in more points. Hold the space bar down and I can drag this image around. Whenever you see that hand, that means that I'm holding down the space bar to move the image around. Okay, let's go ahead and just continue putting our points around. I'll just do it up around the top of the hat in this part, and then I'll stop the video, finish off the selection on the other side, so don't waste all your time just watching me make points in here. But here we go. Here's a little corner right there. So come to that corner, double click at that point, and that gives us a nice corner point. And then right down here, you get another corner, double click right there, and then come back to putting in regular points. And right here is kind of a corner. Just double click right there, and then I can pull that out and make nice even lines here. So again, you can see right here, it's giving me a curve now around those, and where I double clicked, it's giving me a harder edged corner. And those we can also change if you need to later on. It's kind of a corner right there, see that? So just double click right there, and then I'll just move around another little corner right here, double click. And once again, that space bar, and I'll go up around just the top of the hat, and then I'll pause the video at that point. And let's do a little double click right here, and right there, and there and there. So just doing double clicks where I have corners, and I want to have a straight line, and then single clicks where I want to have a curved line. And just work around. Okay, I'll take it this far, and then we'll pause the video, and I'll finish putting in this path around the rest of the figure. I'll bring the video back up again, and we'll go back in and clean up this path using the Direct Select tool. Okay, I finished off the path down to this point, and here's our beginning point. You can see why I had that out here in the outside of the picture. It's just easy to see that. So to finish off and close your path, just go back and click on the first point that you started with. Notice a little kind of a circle next to my tool icon right there. When you see that circle, click there, and that just completes the path. Again, it gives us a nice curve in there because I'm using that Curvature Pen Tool. Okay, that takes care of our basic path. We're now done with that tool. Let's switch over here to the Direct Selection tool, and I'll zoom in, just another little quick zoom. And then once again, hold the space bar down to move the image around. Now let's follow along and make sure we're looking pretty good in here. For this to work, now you click on a path, and you can then move that pointer. I'll click on one of these anchor points. You can move the path around. If you grab one of these control handles, you can move the path this way. Notice how it's moving both left and the right, or the top and the bottom control handles. If you want to move just one, click on your path, click on the anchor point, hold the Alt key down, and click on the one you want to move individually, like that. Now it's a little bit tricky. Sometimes they'll move separately, sometimes they'll move together. It depends upon how the point was made. If they are both white, as you click on the anchor point, then they'll move together. If one is white and one is blue, they'll move separately. And you can reverse that action on how that works just by holding down that Alt key. Okay, space bar. We'll do some small adjustments in here, just getting things as nice and lined up as possible. And again, you don't have to be absolutely perfect at this point because we will be making a selection from this, and we can then clean the selection up using that Select and Mask tool as well. So we have two chances at cleaning up our edge. One is right now, and the second one is with that Select and Mask tool, which allows us to directly adjust our selection. Okay, this is all looking pretty good. And here, as you can see, there's a bit of a curve here, like that, but the hat curves the other way. Again, just grab those little control handles, and I can pull those in so that path now matches that curve. This pulled out, so once again, I'll hold down the Alt key, and I can then move that one individually. So it's merely a matter of going through and making these little fine-tuned adjustments. But this is the real power of using a path to make your selections, that you can go back and fine-tune that selection to make it just exactly the way you want it. I can do a real nice job in here kind of matching that just by moving these control handles around. Okay, so that's the idea here behind cleaning up your selection. Just take your time, go around, look at the selection, move your control handles. If they are straight across from one another and they are both white, then they're going to be moving together. If they are at an angle like this, they'll probably move separately. If they don't move separately, just hold the Alt key down and they'll then move separately. See up here, that upper one is moving when this one is moving. You hold the Alt key down and they'll now move independently. Just adjusting where all the anchor points are placing the path on this. Get the path as close as I can. Another nice thing about doing this is that the path is retained inside of the Paths section, which of course is right up there. There's your Path tab. So the path is retained, so I can always go back to the path later on if I need to. If I haven't moved anything around or resized anything, which would then put the path off, I can always go back and work with that path again in the future. So it gives you, again, a lot of freedom and control in here to make things exactly perfect. Okay, I'll pause the video at this point. I'll finish off working on this path. Once that's done, we'll then come back and convert that path into a selection. And there's the final path. And again, the whole reason to use a path as your starting point to make a selection is that you can go back in and you can adjust and change this and get your path exactly perfectly right. It's the only tool that allows you to have that much control over the path, which means that much control over your selection. Okay, now to turn this into a selection, make sure you're on the direct selection tool right there, and then right click inside of that path, and up here it says make selection. I have my set with a feathering of 1 pixel, kind of softens it down just a little bit in anti-aliased. Choose OK, and there's my selection. Okay, so far so good. Now I don't want to turn this into a layer mask yet because I want to clean up any edge problems with select and mask. Let's go up here to select, come down to select and mask. There's our mask in here. At the top of this you can add to your selection or subtract from your selection. You can adjust your pen size right here, and on the right hand side we have global refinements. I'm not going to be bothering with any of this stuff at this point. Let me just collapse that down. You can choose your view mode. I normally have mine set here on overlay mode. It's just real easy to see, but you can choose any selection you want to use, any technique you want to use. I happen to like overlay, so I'll leave it at that one. You can adjust the opacity of your overlay if you want to, if you have any need for that. There's edge detection. Come in here and adjust your edge detection. I'll leave mine at the lowest setting on that for real nice edge detection. And then down here we have output settings, and the one that I want is output to selection. This will just go back to the same selection and modify that selection. Okay, now I'm going to zoom in. Let's see, I have just limited tools over here on the left hand side. Here's our zoom tool. Let's just zoom in and take a look along the edge in here. You can hold the space bar down again and get that hand, and I'll just follow along the edge and make sure the edge looks good. It looks fine. I think we're okay here. Looks okay. I could probably go in here a little bit right there. We can use this tool. The different buttons in here we have Refine Edge Brush Tool, the Brush Tool, Quick Selection Tool, Lasso Tool, and the Hand Tool. So right there, right below that top tool where it says Refine Edge Brush, that's one you want. And to use this, what you do is you take this circle, kind of see it right there, take the circle with that crosshair in it, and it's go right along the edge. And what this does is it tells Photoshop to re-examine that spot and look for an edge and then adjust the selection to match that edge. It really doesn't matter if you're inside or outside on this thing. Let me show you up here. I'll do it on the inside and it worked out. I'll do it on the outside and it worked out as well. I normally come just to the outside on this, but it'll work either way. Now if it goes in and does too much, I got a little bit of red showing up in here, you can reverse this by clicking on this minus button right there, and then that sets it back again. So going between the plus and the minus, you can really come in and fine-tune your edge. Okay, space bar again. Let's just check any little edges in here. I think we're pretty good, actually. Little spot right in there maybe, and right there. Now notice one thing about this is it will check the whole edge as you're doing this. It goes back in and it kind of cleans up the whole thing as you're working around. So it re-examines everything. Now the only problem with that is if you're a little bit short on memory on your computer, that could cause you some issues. It can really slow things down. So this is one tool that really likes to have a nice amount of memory available for this technique. Okay, that's the only real problem also with Photoshop at all, is that it tends to be a memory hog. It likes all the memory that it can get. So if you need more memory, you probably should get more memory if you're going to be using Photoshop a lot, because it'll use whatever you give it. Okay, I'm just checking the edge in here, a little bit off right there. I can clean that up later on. Hard to tell. It might actually be a bit of the hat showing. A bit of the edge of the hair right there, which I wanted. And then down here, let's come back in, make sure I don't go too far into that buckle. There we go. And we'll take a look along the edge. You can also just do the edges just like this. You want to be just absolutely positively sure that you're okay. Now when this comes in and makes the adjustment and makes your layer mask, I'm going to leave this kind of mess up spot down here. It kind of messed that up. We'll fix that up on the layer mask as another step. So you can always go back and adjust your layer mask as well. Okay, that takes care of our basic look in here. We'll just zoom out, hold the, okay, let's go to fit screen. So nice cleaned up edge. Again, we left that messed up part right there. We'll fix that on the layer mask itself. So you want to come out to output to selection, choose OK. That gives you that selection. You can then use that selection to make your layer mask, which is the layer mask button right down there. There's your layer mask, and there we go. Now at this point you want to come back in and take a look at your edges and see if anything has been messed up. None of these tools are perfect, and you will want to do some cleanup. On the cleanup, we're on the layer mask side. Look for that outline right there. White shows and black hides. So all I need to do is use your white and your black paintbrush to show or hide. So let's fix that little spot down here at the bottom where this looking mask kind of messed up in here. Now I want to have a nice clean edge on this. So I'm just going to go up here to the polygonal selection tool, and let's just make a little selection right around the edge of her arm here. Just like that, and out and around and back to the starting point. That way I can paint in here up against that, and it's not going to get into her arm over there. So paintbrush, black hides, that's what I want. And you can see right here, we're going to then just clean that up very quickly, just like that. Just a real fast little cleanup. Now if I want to make sure it's nice and tight over here, let's just reverse our colors and reverse your selection, inverse. And we can then come along this edge and make sure that we're not missing anything in there. Okay, and then deselect. That is fine. So the space bar down, let's scroll to the top up here. There's a little bit of a dark line showing right in there. That's because we had just a little bit of feathering happening on there, and that gave us that bit of a dark edge. The main takeaway here is that no tool is perfect, and you may need a combination of tools to achieve the best results. So we'll go back here to our polygonal selection tool and also make just a real quick, careful selection right along the edge here. And then we'll just paint right along that edge and just get rid of that little bit of a dark edge. When you're using this particular tool, take your time with it if you're making selections, because it will tend to collapse on you if you aren't careful. Okay, back to our starting point. That's now selected. Let's go back to our black in the foreground. And just a real quick paint line right along there, and that cleans up that edge. That's good. Let's now check up here because it's a bit messy right in there. I think I can just hand do this. So on our paintbrush, we're still on the layer mask, as you can see over here, and let's just come in and quickly do a little cleanup of some of this fuzzy stuff in there. There we go. That's pretty good. Now it's not so hot right there. Let's do a little bit better job. And again, I'll use the polygonal tool in here and make a nice clean selection. Just like that. Back to the beginning. Paintbrush and real quick edge in there, and then deselect. Okay, I think that's it. Let's go ahead and just move around. Okay, it's a little bit messy right here. I didn't spot that before. Let's clean that up as well. So back again to our polygonal lasso tool and just make a nice tight selection right along that edge. This is frequently a problem if you're going from a dark background to a light background, which is what is happening right here. We're getting a little bit of that dark background showing through right along the edge in there, and that's from the softness of the layer mask that we put in. And normally only happens in just a few spots, so it's just a matter of going through and catching those few little areas. Okay, deselect, and that's good. Now if you have a little bit of a dark line like in here, a lot of ways of going about that. You can come in and paint in again just a touch there with your paintbrush, or you could use the burn and dodge tools to darken or lighten an edge, or you can do what we did over here, adjusting the layer mask. All depends on the particular specific spot. So you may need, again, to use a combination of tools to get exactly the effect that you want. Okay, that looks good. Check our hat. Looks fine around the hat. Looks okay on that side. A little bit of a dark edge just right in there. Let's check this arm. Arm looks good this time, so that's fine. Last little spot right there to fix. I'll do the same trick again. I'm just going to grab the polygonal lasso tool and make a new selection just closer in on that strap right there. And then out and around, back to the starting point. And paintbrush. And right there. Okay, I think that takes care of that. Looks good. And it's fit on screen. So there's the basic layer mask now done. And most of that work, of course, was done with that new Curvature Pen Tool, which makes it real easy to make your path for your selection. Now at this point we can resize our image a little bit. She's a little bit too small in here. I want it a little bit higher up. And I want to get this curved part of the hat coming up here into the background a bit better. So I'll click over here to the left hand side to make this part selected. Use the Control T keyboard shortcut to bring up our control handles. Now we're just off screen up there, so I'm going to grab the zoom tool and let's just back out a little bit here. Lots of ways to back out. I'm just going to use the minus tool right there and back to our plus tool. That's fine. And back to our standard move tool again. Control T. There's the edge up here, so I can grab that again. Hold down that Shift key, and we can then resize the image. I want to bring it up about like this. What I want to do is I want to have this curve of her hat getting over into the ocean, and I still want to see that back corner back there of that pier. Let me push it a little bit to the left. Kind of like that. I'm trying to keep things from lining up too much. I don't really like that point there where the point of her hat is lining up exactly on the horizon. That's a little bit awkward. Make it just a little bit higher. And so we can get that so her hat is just off the horizon. Just a touch. There we go. You don't really want to have things exactly lining up like that. You want to have things just a little bit off. Otherwise they become focal points for your eyes. So make sure you're just a little bit off on those positions. So it's about the best I can get that right there. I'm just using those up and down keys right now to kind of bump the image up and down. Okay, there we go. There's a good position on that. That's taken care of. Click on our check mark there to set that in place. Now that was again why I brought this in as a place image instead of any other way, because that kept it as a smart layer, smart object, so that when I made that size adjustment, it went back and refigured that size adjustment from the original image. So I kept the quality as high as possible. Now at this point we're set to get rid of these leaves and branches down here and also do our value adjustments. But to get rid of the leaves down here you need to do clone stamping, and you can't do clone stamping on a smart object. So let's take this layer and duplicate it. Just drag it down to the new layer button and then hide that one. The reason I did that is in case I wanted to go back to that smart object and resize my image. I can do that from that smart object. On this copy, let's right click where the name is and rasterize layer. It's now no longer a smart object, so I can now do clone stamping. But at this point I also want to do my value adjustments in here first and then clone stamp once the value adjustments are done, so it's easier to see the effect of the clone stamping. So let's go up to layer, come down to new adjustment layer, levels right there. Where it says use previous layer to create clipping mask, check that box and choose OK. That links this adjustment just to that layer just underneath, which is just her figure, so we're not changing the background at all. Now in here, the left side richens up the darks, the right side richens up the whites or the lights, and the middle one does your middle values. Now I've already played around with this, and the values that I like, let me just type those in right down here. I had 50 on the black. On the midtones I had set this at 1.64, and on the light values I had it set at 239. And that just brightens it up, brings in more contrast so that she more closely matches the levels of contrast we see in the background. And she's just a little bit too warm right now. I want to cool her down just a bit because it's all blue tones in the background. She has a lot of warm tones in here. So I want to cool this down just a little bit. So one more adjustment layer, layer, new adjustment layer, this time photo filter right there. Again, click that checkbox right there, choose OK, and let's change this to a cooling filter. I like the cooling filter 80. It's a bit too much. Let's bring down our density, bring it down to 15%, and there it is with and without. And we'll go ahead and do that one. Now it's up to you if you want to have that cooling filter or not. I think it helps to have her blend into the picture a little bit better. There's without and there's with. It's a subtle thing, but I think it helps to make the look a bit more naturalistic. Okay, that takes care of all the major work. All we have left to do now is just a little bit of clone stamping down below to get rid of all this stuff. I'll just do a little bit up here. I'm not going to force you to watch me do clone stamping for all this grass. I'll just do a little bit here to show you what I'm doing. We'll then skip forward and wrap the video up. Okay, so for the clone stamp, come down to our layer down there. Let's zoom in and scroll up a little bit like that. Maybe a little bit too close. I'm going to zoom out just one touch. There we are. And then move over here and grab that clone stamp tool. And it's simply a matter then of just cloning on top of what you want to get rid of. I'll start right over here. Hold the Alt key down, click right there, come straight across, and then I'll clone that bit. And it'll be several passes to get this exactly right. Just trying to clone from spots that are a good match. And then it's a process of taking your time and working through and carefully clone stamping out anything that you don't want. You also can use, of course, these healing brushes. Sometimes they'll work out just fine on smaller spots. I kind of like this one here, that's a spot healing brush. It's not too good for these big long grass leaves, but it's real nice as a final cleanup on those. So I'm going to go ahead, pause the video. I'll finish up just getting rid of this stuff with the clone stamp tool and the spot healing brush. Once that's done, we'll bring this back up again and look at the finish. And there we go, there's our finish. I did a little slight tweak on the size again as well, and then just a little bit better for the hat position up here. Wasn't quite happy with that. So there we go, there is the final. And again, the main thing I wanted to show in this video was using that new Curvature Pen Tool. There it is. And again, the main reason for this was to show you how to use this tool, and also how you can use a path as the basis for a real nice, clean, controllable selection. So there you go, using the Curvature Pen Tool to make a selection and use that selection to change a background. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you found it useful. If you like this video, click on the like button below to let others know. You can click the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos in the future. I'm frequently uploading new training videos. Don't forget to check out my website at howtogurus.com.